Yo, what's good, YouTube, man? It's Gary with another Fan TV back at you with the video. Like the content of the video, go smash that like button. Like the content of this channel, go and subscribe, man. Look, Ravens game ended about an hour ago. They whip up on the Cleveland Browns, 41-17. 30th anniversary game of being the Baltimore Ravens and whatnot. So let's talk about the game, right? Because that 41-17 score, while it ended that way, the game was probably a lot closer than it should have been for a lot of Ravens fans. At least felt that way. At least I know I did. For a large part of the game, right, to about the end of the third quarter when Ravens really started to pull away. All right. So let's start. Good things and everything like that. But let's start with the injuries, right? So Jair Alexander was out today after practicing most of the week. Now, honestly, I think he wasn't even ready to play week one. I think the Ravens rushed him out there to the field week one, and he wasn't ready to go. And so now week two, he's kind of up and down as far as the practice schedule. They sat him out. I'm not really surprised by it. Keaton Mitchell, healthy scratch. That one to me is it's still very interesting because coming out the preseason, right? Preseason is not the end all be all, but there was a lot of excitement about Keaton Mitchell, right? Preseason isn't the end all be all or anything like that, but it seemed like it wasn't just fan excitement; it was team excitement as well about Keaton Mitchell. And now you can say it's your numbers game, whatever. Hey, look, we got Justice Hill gonna be the third down guy. I get all of that, but it's just very interesting that Keaton Mitchell once again is a healthy scratch. All right, now injuries in the game, and then we'll talk about the actual game. Rasheen Ali got a concussion on the very first kickoff of the game. He was out. Kyle Van Noy, hamstring. I saw him pull up trying to chase Joe Flacco. That was like in the second quarter. Then the last one that I saw was Marlon Humphrey had a hamstring. I'm not sure if he returned, but it was about the time when the Ravens really started to build the game open, so he might not have returned. That one, I don't know. We'll see the status of that one, come up in the weeks. But Kyle Van Noy, we'll see the status of that one, and so we're same with Rasheen Ali, right? All right. Now, as far as the game goes, right? I like to talk about guys that stood out, and then I'll give my observations of the game, good and bad, and we'll talk about it like that, right? So, all right, guys that stood out. Number one standout performer for me was Roquan Smith, right? This was the Roquan Smith redemption game, all right? For all the talk that we've been having about Roquan Smith, he looks slow, he looks sluggish, he isn't the same guy he used to be. It was none of that today. All right, Roquan Smith was literally all over the field. 15 tackles, 9 solos, 3 TFLs, 2 QB hits. Also had the scoop and score for the touchdown, right? Tavis Robinson strips Joe Flacco. Roquan Smith, Johnny on the spot, takes it to the crib. I believe that's the score that made it 34-10, right? So Roquan Smith, big time game for Roquan Smith. All right, so we'll talk about him a little bit more. I thought Kyle Hamilton was all over the field again. Nani Madubuike had a good game as well. If you notice in the theme, we were talking about defense a lot. Nani Madubuike had a sack this game, a couple QB hits. He did good pressure on Joe Flacco. Tylan Wallace, I'm gonna be interested in seeing the snap counts. Tylan Wallace played a lot today. It seemed like, well, a lot for him. Right? I'm not gonna say he was out there like 60% of the snaps or anything like that. But it seemed like he was out there on the field a lot more than usual, right? So shout out to Tylan Wallace, made his opportunities count. Tez Walker, 2 touchdowns today on 2 catches. That now makes it for his career, his official career as far as regular season game. You know what he did in the preseason, but as far as regular season games go, 3 catches, 3 touchdowns. So 100% touchdown rate off of his receptions for Tez Walker, right? So good for him. 2 catches, 26 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then DeAndre Hopkins, man. DeAndre Hopkins was a big time standout performer today. All right, that first one deep down the field, I thought it was a touchdown as well. They called him basically at the half-yard line. The Ravens don't end up converting. That's a whole other story, right? We could talk about. And then the touchdown that made it 41 points on the board. Same kind of deal. Lamar saw DeAndre Hopkins one-on-one, so I'm going to give you a chance. And DeAndre Hopkins came down with it, what he's been doing his entire career. So for me, it's nice to see that Lamar Jackson has a guy that when he's one-on-one, hey, look, I know that I can throw this ball to you, and it's either going to be 2 results. Either you're going to catch it, it's going to be a great play for us, or the defender's not going to get it. Either way, I'm fine with the outcome, right? So with DeAndre Hopkins, it doesn't even really seem like it's a 50-50 ball. It seems like it's more like an 80-20 kind of ball, right? Where, honestly, when it goes up and I see his number 10 down there, I'm expecting him to come down with the ball some way, somehow. And so far, through 2 games, it's very early in the season, we have not been disappointed, right? DeAndre Hopkins is obviously very motivated by all the wash talk and things like that. But as of right now, he does not look washed. All right, the Ravens are using him sparingly. I won't say he's out there a whole bunch like we might expect. But when he is out there, he's making plays, right? He's being DeAndre Hopkins. So shout out to that. All right. Now observations, right? Observations, good and bad. Okay. About this game, right? Like I said, 41-17, dominant victory. But that's not really how the game, started out, right? So let's talk about some of the bad, right? Initially, the offense was very, very sluggish, okay, to start off this game, right? I thought the offense struggled mightily to open up this game. Lamar Jackson ended up with a great stat line because he really picked it up. I would say probably that second quarter on, he really was looking like Lamar Jackson, right? But he ends the game 19-29, 225, 4 touchdowns, 128.6 QB rating, right? So beautiful game for Lamar Jackson. But I would say that to start the game off, it was a little disjointed. He missed a couple throws, behind Rashad Bateman, too high for Zay Flowers a couple of times, right, for him and Zay. So it was just a little disjointed, right? But I don't blame him all the way because the offensive line in front of him was not playing well. That's one of my first things I'm going to say about that was bad for the game. The offensive line did not play well today. For large stretches of the game, right? Not the whole game. Pass blocking was okay, but run blocking, they was getting tossed around up front. When it came to handling pressure, I don't think they handled pressure that well. It made Lamar Jackson move off his spot a little bit too much. So, we kind of see Lamar Jackson kind of revert to taking that really, really deep drop so he can run up in the pocket and avoid the rush, right? He does that. To me, when I've seen him do that, it's because he doesn't trust the offensive line. So he's going to get really deep in the pocket so that he can run up, you know what I'm saying, and evade guys easier instead of just standing straight up in the pocket. All right. To me, he does that when he doesn't trust what he sees in front of him as far as the offensive line. That's just my observation of it. Okay. Yeah, so I thought that run game was non-existent. Derrick Henry has 11 carries for 23 yards a day. Lamar Jackson only ran the ball twice, 2 for 13. So, yeah, they couldn't really get much push up front. So the offensive line performance, I would say, if I had to give it a grade, it was probably a strong C- today, right? I wasn't overly impressed with the offensive line, but this kind of goes back to the same thing we always talk about. The Ravens go against a premier defensive line, this offensive line can still struggle. And this is the Cleveland Browns, right? They're not a good football team, but they have a good defensive line, all right? That's what I talked about in the game preview. I talked about this defensive line. So that makes me worry when you talk about, down the line who you may have to face, right? We don't got to get into that, but you know the names, okay? Who you may have to face. So I worry about that. But it's week 2. We'll see how it progresses. But offensive line, not great. Next thing, right? That wasn't great, right? 2 more things, then we'll get on to the good. I promise. All right. Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews looks sluggish. All right. He looks slow. Very disappointed in the touchdown that he dropped. I mean, I'm gonna say he dropped it. He caught the ball. The defender makes a great play, knocks it out of his hands. But, this is Mark Andrews that we're expecting. He tucks that ball away easily. It's a catch, it's a touchdown on the board, right? So far this year, he has not looked good. And I'm just putting it lightly. All right. He has not looked good. Okay. And then lastly, I was not a fan of the decision into the first half. I guess right before the 2-minute warning, or right after the 2-minute warning, whatever, where the Ravens decide not to go forward, 4th and inches. Yes, I get it. You're on your own 13-yard line. It's 10-0, right? You don't want to get the Browns momentum. But to me, it's a 2-score game. The Browns are giving nothing on offense. The defense is playing well, right? At worst, you give them a touchdown, but you do get the ball after half, and you probably would get the ball back during that 2-minute drive anyway, right? So for me, you just went for it on 4th and inches not that long ago with Mark Andrews' tush push. It worked easily. Do it again, right? To me, that was a soft decision. I didn't like that, right? I'm going for it right there. And then you give Lamar Jackson an opportunity to have a 2-minute drive and get more points on the board. Instead, you punt the ball to Cleveland. It's a bad punt. They get the ball to 49. They end up getting 3 points anyway on the drive. So to me, I'd rather just go for it and live with the results. All right, now, enough about the bad. Good. Plenty of good to say. I talked about Roquan Smith, right? Roquan Smith was dynamic. To me, he was the player of the game, right? He was the guy that was all over the field. I love watching Roquan Smith. This was the best I've seen Roquan Smith move in probably an entire season, okay? Maybe since 2023, right? Since the end of that season, right? He looked dynamic out there, right? I mean, then, like, the Scooper scored a touchdown. And now, obviously, Roquan Smith plays the small boxes, small spaces, things like that. But I have never seen, at least in a couple of years, I have not seen Roquan Smith move that fast. He was running full speed to the end zone, and he looked quick doing it, right? So I want to say shout out to the defense overall because the defense really held this game down, right? When the offense was sluggish, getting going, it was really the defense holding it together, right? The Browns really don't do much, all right, to start the game. The Browns kind of helped the Ravens out, not truly running the ball to start the game, right? But even when they tried to run the ball, wasn't much there. But this defense was all over him, right? What I mean? Joe Flacco on the day, he ends up getting pulled when the game ends up being a blowout. But Joe Flacco has 25 for 45, 199, one touchdown, one interception. Really should have been two picks and zero touchdowns. Marlon Humphrey dropped the interception that Cedric Tillman, ends up catching. But I guess it is what it is with that one. You know what I mean? So, but the defense overall, but Roquan Smith especially, really, really good. I really, really liked what I saw from Roquan Smith today. And that's just off the first watch. You watched again, he made me pop even more. But, I mean, to start the game, he had a couple of TFLs, right? He was all over the field. He looked, like I said, way better than he's looked at any point last year. It's really since that 2023-24 season, right? I mean, he looked incredible today. Hopefully, that's his form from here on out. All right. Defensive line, then another one about defense. The defensive line heated up in the second half. I really like what I saw. Tavis Robinson, I talked about strip sack on Joe Flacco. Dafi Owe came with some pressures. Mike Green came with a couple of pressures. Talked about Nandi Matabike, right? This defensive line really heated up in the second half. When they knew the Browns had to pass the football, they got after Joe Flacco, and that's what I wanted to see. Get after Joe Flacco. He's the statue. He cannot move. He's going to roll out the pocket a little bit. But you should be able to chase him down. Anybody on this team should be able to chase down Joe Flacco, okay? And they did that, right? So I'm very, very happy about that. The defensive line really, really took charge of this game in the second half, right? So kudos to them for that, okay? All right, now offensively, gotta talk about the passing game, man. Because the running game didn't do much today, but the passing game carried it, right? Like I said, Lamar just had 225 yards. But Zay Flowers, man. Zay Flowers, 7 catches, 75 yards, no touchdowns today, 11 targets. The next closest person on this team in terms of targets, Rashad Bateman had 4 targets today, right? So Zay Flowers had 11 targets, okay, and he made the most of them, right? 11 targets, 7 catches, 75 yards. He's starting to become that guy that, we always talk about the term wide receiver one, right? We always talk about this term, right? Zay Flowers is doing it in a different way, right? He might not be your typical X lineup on the outside on the boundary, and we're gonna run, fade. We're gonna run streaks, curls, comebacks, slants. He might not do that. But if the Ravens need a completion, whether it's over the middle, whether it's on the outside, which he can line up and play, Zay Flowers is a guy that Lamar Jackson is comfortable going to, right? In these first 2 games of the season, he's looked really good. I mean, we're talking about the first 2 games. We're talking about 14 catches, right? Over 200 yards in the first 2 games of the season. That's beautiful. We're coming up on a time where, the Ravens are going to have to decide how much they want to pay Zay Flowers. Not this year, but maybe this offseason coming up, they're going to decide how much they want to pay Zay Flowers, right? So right now, he's putting it out there on the field that, hey, look, if y'all want to keep me, you're going to have to pay me. And if he continues to produce like this, I have no issue with it, right? So Zay Flowers looked really good. And then I want to say the biggest thing with Zay Flowers, I would say, is growth, right? One cut and go. I'm not seeing a lot of juking back and forth, trying to make 3 guys miss. He's seeing the opportunity. He's running straight. If there's one cut, he'll make that one cut, but then he's straight after that, right? So he listened to all the critiques. He heard it. He banked it. Right now he's putting out there on the field, right? So really, really good. Shout out to Zay Flowers. Shout out to this passing game for figuring it out. With Lamar Jackson, D-Hop, talked about Zay Flowers, obviously, right? We haven't really, the only thing that's really missing from this passing game so far, Rashad Bateman hasn't gotten going, and we haven't really seen anything from the tight ends yet, okay? So like I said, Mark Andrews has kind of been disappointing so far. Isaiah likely has the potential of coming back. Maybe week 3, maybe next week he'll come back. We'll see. But I would say that this passing game really picked it up when the run game couldn't. Obviously, the defense helped out, getting the Ravens in a lot of short fields. Ravens took advantage of that. But when this running game couldn't get going, Lamar Jackson, this passing game, elevated the team, right? When it was halftime, and it was kind of a disappointing performance all around, if we're being quite honest, as far as offense goes. Second half, they came out with a sense of urgency and really kicked it up into gear, right? They still made some mistakes. It still wasn't 100% clean. But like I said, in the preview, that these first 3 weeks, since starters don't really play preseason games anymore, this first 3 weeks is kind of like the preseason for those starters. Right? They gotta get it right. They gotta get in the rhythm. They gotta get in the flow. But when the Ravens offense got into a flow passing the ball, they looked good. They looked good, right? So I would say that this win was the kind of win I wanted to see, right? They weren't dominant for 4 quarters, so I'm not gonna say that. But the defense, very, very good, very, very dominant, suffocated Cleveland Browns offense pretty much the whole game. The offense clicked it into gear, and then they made big plays, right? DeAndre Hopkins catch, Roquan Smith fumble. This Cleveland Browns team beating them by 24 points is what the scoreline should look like. All right. I mean, they get a garbage time touchdown when, Dylan Gabriel passes the ball, I believe it's to Dylan Sampson, right? So, it could have been 41-10. But 41-17 is still good enough, right? It's a great score, right? So, the Ravens do a great job. They get the W. It's still a lot of things that they need to clean up and get more cleaner with. But if we're talking about just overall happiness with the game, I'm happy with that performance for the most part, right? So I'm looking forward to see what they do next. But that's my thoughts on the game, right? I love seeing Roquan Smith out there really looking like Roquan again. Lamar Jackson, taking, really figuring out what he has to do as far as getting it going for the team, right? Because it was Struggleville for a little while. So all that really looked good, right? So this Ravens team right now is 1-1, should be 2-0, but we move forward, right? They 1-1, and we'll go on to next week and see what they got for us next, right? But that's my thoughts on the game. My player of the game, I'm going to have to give it to Roquan Smith, right? I mentioned his name plenty of times in this video. That's my player of the game, right? So let me know your guys' player of the game in the comments. But that's it for me. It's Gabriel, to the Fan TV. I'm out.